Good evening, folk. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you'll agree we're in for an exciting evening. We certainly have an exciting speaker talking to us. I was doing a little bit of research into the speaker, and I discovered that he was a information systems manager who installed AS400 at De Beers mine. I had no idea what that meant, what he did there. But I do know that he is a Map for Life groupie like myself and is a partner and a leader of a group. He's a director of Solar Sky Consulting. He's a member of Comensa and coaches both personal and businesses. He's also described as a HR skills specialist. And Terence Ogle this year will be celebrating his 40th wedding anniversary, which in itself is an incredible achievement. So I'd like to say a big warm welcome to Terence Ogle, and his topic tonight is Our Time is Now.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Peter, for that introduction. I'm just so pleased and honored to be able to give this talk. And as Peter said, the title of my talk tonight is Our Time is Now, or to personalize it more, your time is now, my time is now. And over the years, I've been fascinated by this concept of time. And I could spend hours discussing and analyzing different views on the topic of time. When one overlays the facet of eternity into this discussion on time, it becomes even more intriguing. However, for this talk, I will keep it simple and as practical as possible. And what I'd like to do is to begin with a few quotes, a few quotations on time. And the first is, lost time is never found again, implying that when we lose time, we can never make it up. We can never make up for lost time. A second quote is, it's not about having time, it's about making time. And the implication here is that we need to actively and proactively make time and spend our time wisely on those things that matter and are important to us. The last and third quote is, time and tide wait for no man. And this speaks to the continuous cycle of time. And on this one, just an interesting detour and an interesting fact on time and the continuous cycle of time. There's only one time in history that time stopping has been recorded. And this is an event recorded in the Bible, in the book of Joshua, chapter 10. This is where Joshua is fighting a battle. And he realizes that he needs more daylight to actually win the battle. So he cries out to God, God, please stop the sun. In effect, please give me more daylight. And God hears his call, hears his plea, and accedes to it. And actually, literally, stops the earth from rotating and thereby giving Joshua more time to ultimately win the war. And this particular passage in the Bible got me thinking, how many times in our busy lives aren't we faced with a situation where we need more time? We just don't have enough time to complete the assignment for whatever reason, to meet those deadlines, etc. And how many times we ourselves, like need to cry out, God, please stop the sun. But I guess, if God did that often, it would cause a lot of disruption. So, let's just take it for granted that time is continuous and the sun will never, in our lives, stop again. What I now want to focus on are the three tenses, if you can call it that, tenses or realms of time. And I want to use the analogy of dwellings, of habitats. Okay, so consider what I'm about to say as three different dwellings, places where we as individuals can go and dwell. So the first is past, the past, so that's been, and the second is the present, the now, and then the third is the future. Amy Grant, one of my favorite gospel singers, has a song entitled Our Time Is Now, from which I in fact borrow the title of my talk. And I want to read just the chorus verse for you. It goes like this. Time is an illusion. Time is a curse. Time is all these things and worse. But our time is now. Yes, our time is now. Let us sing before our time runs out. So in this particular chorus, what I picked up, and especially the last verse resonates with me, because I see that line and I interpret it as, let us act, let us do what we need to do now before our time runs out. She also refers to time as an illusion, and a author that I really love reading, Eckhart Tolle, in his book, The Power of Now, also comes up with this assertion that the past is an illusion, that the future is an illusion. The only reality we live in is the present, the now. And I would certainly recommend for any of you who are listening and are keen to actually go deeper into this world of time, of past, present, and future, of mind, and of consciousness, to read his book. Again, it's entitled The Power of Now, and the author is Eckhart Tolle. What I do wish to do now, though, is to state what I consider two facts. Now, you may disagree with me on this, but bear with me as I share with you these two facts. And the first fact is the only tense in terms of time or realm that we can execute in or act in is the present. Okay? So we cannot do anything in the past except think about the past, nor can we do anything about the future except think about the future, but that thinking happens in the now, in the present moment. Now, this might seem a fairly basic and obvious statement. However, as I will attempt to show as I go on with this talk, failure to grasp this simple concept can lead us astray and away from actually achieving our life goals and ultimately our life purpose. The second fact I want to share with you is that what actually takes us into the past and what actually takes us into the future is our mind. And the way the mind does it is through our thoughts. Okay? So, for example, the mind, via memory recall, will take us back to an event that happened 20 years ago. And that event might be a very unpleasant event. Okay? And what that thinking about that event does then evokes emotions. And if it's an unpleasant event, the emotions will be ones of regret, ones of anxiety, maybe. Okay. But it all begins with our mind taking us back to a time in the past. And similarly, the future. So when one thinks about the future and things like fear come into it, that immediately evokes within us emotions of fear and again of anxiety. But the point I want to make is that it is our minds over which we as individuals have control that take us into the past or into the future. Our minds in the present are focused on action, on what's happening in the here and the now. Okay. So having established the above two facts, let's now examine what it looks like when our thoughts take us firstly into the past and then secondly into the future. And in both these cases, I want to present two scenarios, a positive scenario and a negative scenario. So in other words, we're going to examine the past, negative, and we're going to examine the past, positive, and we're going to do exactly the same with the future. We're going to look at the future negative and the future positive. So let's begin with the past negative thoughts. As I mentioned earlier, these evoke mainly feelings of regret, feelings of inadequacy. So we would ask questions like, what if this could have been different? Or could I have done things differently? Should I have done A rather than B? Okay, so our minds are occupied with all this questioning, which leads to regret, anxiety, and just an uncomfortable space that as an individual you're in. So I consider these negative thoughts as toxic, often leading to a spiral of depression, anxiety, sleepless nights, etc., which clearly are not good for us. But for me, the critical part is the time that we then spend in that dwelling, the time that we then spend in that habitat happens at the expense of the time that we would have spent in the present, taking action, considering different options, and just being in the present and doing what we should be doing in the present. Because there's a trade-off. Whatever time you spend in the past, you lose in the present, you lose in the now. Let's move on then to the past positive. Here, these are pleasant thoughts, right? So one goes back into the past and remembers the times in one's life where things were pleasant, a pleasant experience. The birth of a child, a marriage, and these are all good thoughts. And what these thoughts can do, and often do, is they motivate us, they re-motivate us, they re-energize us to perhaps go down a certain path and maybe to repeat certain things that we've done in the past. Okay. However, they do not lead to any action. What we're doing there is really reminiscing. Okay. Now, I'm not at all suggesting we don't take what's good from the past and see if we can apply it. But when we apply it in the now. We apply it in the present, and our minds then need to be focused on the present. So both for negative past and positive past, we just got to be careful not to linger too long in that space or in that dwelling, particularly in the past negative. Okay, let's move forward then to the future, and let's discuss future negative. So future negative is driven mainly by fear, which leads to worry, which leads to anxiety and everything that we said about the negativity in the past. Again, it's, what if I can't? What if I lose my job? What if I can't do this or do that? I'm not good enough. So feelings of inadequacy. And often what happens is our fear paralyzes us and stops us from the action we should be taking in the present. What about the future positive? Okay, the future positive entails mainly envisioning the future, painting a clear picture of the future, having dreams and setting goals around that future. And these are indeed important steps, and steps that we encourage and that form an integral part of the Map for Life process. Okay, it is important to dream. It is important to understand exactly where we're heading to. It gives us focus, we have vision, and we can move forward. However, this is also not a good place to dwell in for too long. Because if we dwell in this future positive state, all we achieve is dreams, right? And our dreams will remain dreams until we take action in the now and in the present. So, what we are left with then is the present. And this is the only dwelling where action can take place, where execution is the norm. So, as much as there's thoughts and thinking in the present, in addition to that, there's our ability to take meaningful action, to execute on whatever those direction, those thoughts that have then been formulated in the form of goals, etc., are taking us. There's a beautiful verse in the Bible, Matthew 6:34, and it says, quote, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." So if your now is today, focus on today. You know, I don't think Jesus would have told us not to focus on tomorrow, and that's, I interpret that as plan for tomorrow by all means, right? But don't worry about tomorrow. Use today to the best of your ability. Fill it with whatever activities that you need to fill it with in the now. Remember, as we said earlier, that every second we spend regretting the past or fearing the future is a second of the present wasted. I'm going to repeat that. Remember, every second we spend regretting the past or fearing the future is a second of the present wasted. In other words, a second of the present where we haven't taken action. All we've done is we've visited the past in thought, or we've visited the future in thought as well. I trust that this talk will be helpful in putting into perspective the whole past, present, and future, the whole time thing. As I said, it is a deep and complicated topic, time in itself, and if you need to, I would encourage you to delve deeper into it. I myself am comfortable with where I am in my understanding of time. I still have a long way to go in terms of walking the talk and actually making sure that I am in the present 99.9% of the time and not wallowing in the past or daydreaming about the future. So I thank you for your time. And at this point, I want to hand over to Peter, who introduced me, who will then facilitate a panel discussion on this issue of time. I thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Terence, thank you very much for that thought-provoking address. It was so apt that you were wearing your Nike t-shirt and a case of just do it and do it now. I really think it is important that we become men of action and not just dreamers and dreaming of the future or living in the past. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the panel's got to say about these concepts of the three stages of time. But I do agree that the present is the most important. So I'm just looking to see who is on the panel. I can see Bucks down and he's Port Elizabeth. And I'm saying, welcome, Bucks. Wonderful to have you with us. What did you think about that concept of time and the three stages?
You know, Peter, we do not have enough time to discuss the issue of time. time. I mean, it's living in the present. Living in the moment. That's what I say to people. Just live in the moment. Forget about the past. Don't focus on the future. If you have your plans and your dreams on paper, and you've got your action plans, today is the days to take the action. And you know, and it's like tomorrow you find that the actions that you've taken it's not good enough to get you to where you want to go. Then you like your GPS. It says recalculate, and you just recalculate, but you got to live in the day. But something that I really feel, what I often say to people is that in all life-changing decisions, time never runs out. So in any life-changing decisions, time never runs out, because people tend to say is they take a life-changing decision today and then immediately leave it out because they think they don't have the time to get there. So when people make life-changing decisions, they think of the future and what's going to happen in the future, instead of says this is the life-changing decision that I'm taking. Let me take it step by step. Let me take it minute by minute, or day by day, or week by week, and not get flustered by what's going to happen in the future, or what happened in the past. So
thank you, Bucks. I'm going to come back to you about a time or decision that you made, and I'd like to discuss it. But Heather comes to us all the way from, I was going to say all the way from London, but she's just south of London. And Heather, I'd just like your thoughts on time.
Good evening, Peter. Thank you. Great talk by Terence. When he was talking about time, what was going into my head was Psalm 118:24. Today is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. He hasn't made tomorrow for us yet. We're not even assured of tomorrow, but today we have. So time, often we focus too much on the time instead of just focusing on now, this moment, this one thing that I can do right now that will take me closer to my goal.
Wonderful. Heather, you made some big decisions in your life regarding your whereabouts. You moved from Zimbabwe to South Africa to the UK, and what effect did time play in your plans?
Well, sometimes the timing had to be correct. Some of the decisions were influenced, but as far as timing is concerned, to move to the UK, we had to do it before my eldest daughter turned 18 so that she could still be considered a minor. So time played a very important factor as to the date we actually arrived in the UK. But you know what? It doesn't matter where you are. If you just focus on the now, then, and not on the time, God will provide.
Amen. Thank you. Amelia, what are your thoughts?
Hi there. It was an absolutely awesome talk. And what immediately came to my mind, Peter, was a movie that I saw many years ago. And the name of the movie was Time. That was simply called Time. And it was a very, very interesting concept. Every human being in the movie on their forearm had a counter, and that counter showed them how little time they had left. So obviously the richer people were, the more time they had. The poorer people had, the less time they had. And the whole movie was about these people's journey and how they tried to get the things done in however much time they still knew that they had. And it often made me wonder, the things that we do on a daily basis, how our decisions would have been influenced if we knew exactly how much time we had left to live out our purpose. I think we would really stop all the stopping and just start starting. Like you made the comment on Terence's shirt tonight, just do it. We will stop waiting and we will just do what we need to do. Time is very precious and very few.
I think that really is important, and I think that certainly from a personal point of view, that will just be one aspect that I will be taking away tonight. As we look at time today, and we look back on the past, has time changed today to what it was in the past? Max, what about you?
The times change. The older you get, the quicker the time goes. It's the end of February and it feels like it's already March or April. That's the beauty of it, and that's why I say time never runs out, because we still have 24 hours a day. And that hasn't changed, and it will never change.
And I think that's an important factor to remember.
So that's why I say time never runs out, because you're in the moment, you're in the time at the moment. So what's going to happen in the future is immaterial. It's going to happen or it's not going to happen. So why worry about it now? Why think about the future? Why and also why think about the past? I mean, the past is past. I mean, what happened in the past is gone and forbye, and we shouldn't even. The only thing is that we just must learn from what happened in the past, and that's that. But don't live in the past. I mean, this is something that I really battle with my kids and my wife and everybody. Is they continue to go back to what happened in the past. And I said, there's nothing that you can do about that now. So live in the moment, and time is never going to run out. So whatever you plan, whatever you want to do, time is never going to run out.
Heather, with communication today, and we go back to the good old days when we used to have stamps and lick a stamp and put it on an envelope and send it out to the colonies, and then you would wait for a response to come back. Whereas today we're in this instant gratification time zone, where we send an email off and we expect an answer immediately. How does that impact our lives? Anybody like to comment on that?
You're muted, Heather.
With the great expectancy of things happening immediately, we tend to realize that our values have changed. In the sense that when you're writing a letter, you're thinking about what you're saying. You're looking at what you're saying. You're actually checking what you're saying. When you're sending a text, sometimes your finger slips and you've sent something that's been not appropriate because it's corrected what you've said, or you've said something that you wouldn't have normally have written because you'd have time to think about it. So that expediency of things happening quicker than they used to has positive and negative results. So communication has to be, you have to be more careful now with your communication, because a
Yes.
lot of times people misunderstand what you're saying. And over a text message and an email, you're not face to face. You cannot judge body language. You cannot judge expression. You cannot even judge tone. You're literally in your own mind formatting all these things and deciding
Yes.
that they said, I don't want to do that. Then meanwhile, they could have said, actually, I don't want to do that. Or, it's just perception changes with this. But talking about the past, once you've learned from it, we've got to move on. But we like to have these little pity parties. We like to stay stuck in the past. We don't want to move. We don't want to grow. So we got to ask ourselves, what are we getting from the past that we're hanging on to, that we believe we can't get from now?
Now, Heather, the other one, coming back, and I'm sorry I didn't write down what psalm it was, but when we talk about today is the day the Lord has made, could you just enlarge on that? And what does that do for you?
Well, when you wake up in the morning, you should wake up and say, yes, I'm alive. Today is the day that the Lord has made. We must rejoice and be glad in it. We mustn't think, oh my gosh, now I've got to get up and go to work. The dog has to be walked. The kids have to be fed. Just wake up and be grateful that you were given today. Go out and serve.
I think that is so important. I talk about we've got to get up and we've got to light the campfire every morning, and we've got to motivate ourselves every day to get out and make it happen. And I just think it's important to focus on something like that psalm that you've just spoken about. And I think morning gratitudes are such a key part about it. So really, thank you for raising that one. And then Amelia, coming back to yours, and if we knew how much time we had left, what are you doing about that particular question? How often do you consider that question?
I recently faced it in quite a big way when a close family member passed away. And she often used to have so many plans of the things that she still wanted to do. And I often wonder if she knew that there wasn't any time to waste. If all of us could live every day, like you say, Heather, you wake up in the morning absolutely grateful to have another day, because that's all we have is another day. We don't know if we have tomorrow. And then live today to the fullest. Do absolutely everything that you possibly can. And yes, I know we can then start talking about, yes, but what is realistic, and you must be absolutely, we all need to live our lives. But it is so important to focus on not wasting time. Be grateful for every single day and put everything possible in the 24 hours ahead of you. Everything possible, as if tomorrow is not coming. And make sure that you focus on your goals and that you do everything that you want to do.
Yeah, no, I think that is so important. I know, and I've got a book somewhere where they talk about the 5 regrets that folk face when they're facing death. So much of it is related to what they haven't done. And it's to make sure that we prioritize these things, and we do it now. And not wait. I just see a thing coming up on the chat show. Our graveyards are full of unrealized dreams. And I think on that song, that the chorus that Terence was talking about, and the time is now. And Bucks, would you like to add something to that?
Peter, you mentioned and you asked Heather about what's different from when we still are postal stamp and put it on an envelope and send it off in the mail. And the technology of today, you know, the problem is we want to manage time. We cannot manage time. We can only manage the events. So if there's more stuff that you can do in a quicker way, you can still only do it in the minutes or the seconds and the minutes and the hours that you have available to you. So nothing's actually changed. Just our events changed. And that's why the insights, and I agree with what Heather said, is that we need to live in the moment. So we need to get up in the morning and do whatever we can do in the 24 hours, the next 24 hours. And we need to decide what we do and what we say, what effect that does have on people around us. What difference does it make, everything we do? And that's the mindset that we should have, is to say everything that I do must have a positive impact on everybody around me. And it's got nothing to do with time. It's got to do with now. What am I doing now? What am I saying now? What I'm talking about now? Whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the evening, it's immaterial.
But you raised the question of mindset, and Terence spoke of mindset. He said that we have control of our minds. Would you like to just talk a little bit more about mindset? What sort of control do we have on our mindset, and what should we be doing about it?
You know, now we can really become with a psychological or a type of the discussion here. But our mindset is how we, you know, what we think we say, and what we say we become. So our mindset must be to think on the positive, and not think about the negative stuff. So our mindset is something that's what I talk a lot about to people. We need to, especially in COVID, was it a lack of time to talk about that, because everybody fell back into this negative mindset. Oh, everything is going to go bad, and actually nothing's changed.
Yes,
we're still here, and we're still living, and we're still doing business, and so. But that's a mindset, and I believe in my heart that a lot of people died because they continuously thought about what's happening. They thought about the COVID, and they attracted that COVID to themselves, and then they died. And I said from the beginning, we need to say to ourselves, this is whatever. It's not going to change the time. So we still need to live in the moment, like what they said. Live in the moment, and that's a mindset. It's a mindset.
Wonderful. Thank you. Heather, would you like to comment on mindset?
Yes, because when you're thinking, if you've got the right attitude, if you say to yourself, I'm going to be late, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be late. You've actually spoken it, thought about it, spoken it, and it's happened. So your mindset has to always be on the positive. All right, you look at your watch and say, okay, I've got 15 minutes left. I'll have it done by then. You always got to focus on the positive, so that your mindset and your attitude, how you approach everything during your day is critical. But if you focus on right now and not think of what's going to happen, because you usually say, I'm going to be late, now I'm going to miss the bus, I'm going to miss the train, and you start cataloging all the things that are going to go wrong. So your mindset really has to be positive. Just focus on now and deal with now.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. And what about you?
I absolutely agree. You know, guys, like we all say, you know, it's all about the language that you use. If you expect something to go wrong, it will go wrong. But if we start changing our minds and don't use things like, you know, for example, if something is an issue or a problem, don't use the word problem, rather use the word a challenge. Because if you go and look in the dictionary as well, if you talk about a problem, it's a negative connotation. If you talk about the challenge, it's a growth opportunity. And if you just use the right language and start looking at things differently, you know, if you come across a challenge in your life, it's an opportunity for you to grow. If you look at it that way, you will be able to get through it and go through it and work through it much better than when you look at it as a problem, because that drains your energy and that wastes time. That takes you out of the present. It throws you into the future where you worry, or it keeps you in the past where you're thinking about something that happened in the past that was like this. Just focus on the current, learn the lesson that you can learn from it, take the growth and make it a positive experience.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, Terence recommended a book, The Power of Now. Has anybody read the book? Would anybody like to comment on the book?
I have read it several times, and perhaps Terence looked at it from a different perspective. He got a lot more out of the book. I got one sentence out of the whole book, just the one sentence. So yeah, I mean,
And what was your one sentence?
I actually don't recall it, but I've highlighted it. Okay. There was something about living in now and concentrating on now.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm in the same boat as you. I've got the book, I've read it, but as I sit here and I think about it, I can't really comment on it other than I believe in the power of now and how important the power of now is. Bucks, what about you?
I haven't read the book, but I'm going to try and get it, because all of it and just read it. But yes. but you know, and this is what I said earlier on. We do not have enough time to discuss the issue of time, because time is now. This time is now. I don't know whether I'm going to be on this little earth in the next 50 minutes, but I'm not worried.
So
about
what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it?
I'm not worried about it. Worrying about what's going to happen in the future. I don't worry about the future. I really don't.
That's just from a personal point. I find that an exciting challenge. I find it's a little bit of a challenge that gets me up in the morning and sort of gets me going, because I know that at some stage I'm going to have to meet my Creator, and I'm going to have to tell him what I've done with the gifts and talents that he's given me. And I'm trying to make sure that when I get to that point in time, I can tell him what I've done, and I'm not satisfied that I've done enough to keep him happy. And that's my sort of motivation: is do it now and make that difference. Would anybody like to just come up with a closing statement? Amelia?
Absolutely. You know, I would say do what you can with what you have, and do it now. If we can all live according to that.
Heather, what about you? One last thought.
For me, somebody once said to me, why do you talk to your children every day? Why do you phone your mother every day? You know why? Because I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. So talk to your friends, your family, your loved ones today. Don't put it off for tomorrow.
I think that is such wonderful advice. And I don't think we can have a better closing thought. So Heather, thank you. Thank you, Bucks. Thank you, Amelia. And to everybody out there, thank you for being with us tonight. Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.